Welcome to Sinkowitz, hosted by the fearless Linda Sinkowitz. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to Sinkowitz. I'm Linda Sinkowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. And welcome to season number 2. We are so excited about this. And we want to thank everyone who has been watching our programs weekly for the past year. We really appreciate your support. And we've got some exciting things that are going to be happening this year. So first, I want to give you the rundown of our show today. Now, today we're going to be talking about Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, the whiners in Ohio, Oklahoma. We're going to go to our election vocabulary, our trivia, our national news, and then our vote notes. And of course, at the end, you will have my final thoughts. Now, this week, we don't have a guest this week. We're going to talk about what we are going to be launching. As a matter of fact, we are launching it this week. Operation Verify Voters 2026. What that means is that we want to get as many people involved across the country in every single state that can help us clean your voter rolls. It's really important that we do this. We're going to have some training available through our organization, Fight Voter Fraud. But what we want people to do is to check your street. You know people that moved. You know the houses that were sold. You know people who have passed away. Check to see if they're still on your voter rolls. We'll walk you through the process on what we need to do, but every single one of you can make a difference. You can. Like I said, if you just tackle your own street or your neighborhood, or if you go to community centers, and unfortunately you may know people who have passed away, check to make sure that they've been removed from the voter rolls so nothing nefarious can happen. So look out for our Operation Verify Voters 2026. We want to make sure that we get every single state involved. These midterms are extremely important, and so is your vote. Okay, so now we're going to go on to our first state, which is Michigan. This is from ABC Stacker News, and this is from January 2nd, 2026. Republicans want comprehensive oversight of Michigan's 2026 election. Now, what does that mean? In a letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, which was sent on November 13th from Michigan Republicans, they have asked the federal government to provide, quote, comprehensive oversight of the state's 2026 election. Now, in Michigan, we had 22 Republican state senators from both the state legislators, both from the Senate and the House, signed on to this letter, including Senate Minority Leader Eric Nesbitt, Senator Ruth Johnson, a former Michigan Secretary of State, and Representative Rachel Smith, who leads the House Election Integrity Committee. The letter has asked the U.S. Justice Department to, quote, deploy official election monitors and provide comprehensive oversight for Michigan's 2026 primary and general elections, unquote. It cites a number of concerns about Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson's administration of the election, from the fact that she is running for governor in the 2026 election to her alleged violations of election law. The first part of the Republicans' request, federal election monitors, isn't unusual. monitors watching polling places and vote counting centers to ensure workers are following the processes appropriately. Now, note Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State, again, is running for governor. And there's some whining about the accuracy of the Michigan voter rolls, etc. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. Now, the whining is not coming from the Republicans. It's coming from the Democrats saying, oh, everything is fine. There's no problem. There's a huge problem. Huge problem. So I really hope the Department of Justice does offer the comprehensive oversight. The Democrats, of course, are saying, well, what is comprehensive oversight? Really? Let's have fair elections. Free and fair elections. That's what we're going for. No more of this whining and complaining because you actually want to have accurate elections. Oh, now we're going on to a state that everybody has heard of, Minnesota. Lovely Minnesota. This is from KTTC, and this is also from January 2nd, 2026. How does vouching work in Minnesota elections? Now, I had never heard of this before, by the way, until it just came out about what is going on in the state of Michigan. The U.S. Department of Justice is asking Minnesota's top election officials for records of the state's recent voter registration practices with documents pertaining to votes accepted through vouching, which are of particular interest. In a letter to the Minnesota Secretary of State, Steve Simon, the DOJ's Civil Rights Division has provided Simon's office 15 days to hand over specific records for all federal elections held in the past 22 months, which includes the March 2024 primary election and the November 2024 general election. Quote, the basis and purpose of this demand is to ensure Minnesota's registration and voting practices are in compliance with federal law, particularly the minimum requirements under HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, and the letter dated January 2nd stated, quote, the Department of Justice is particularly concerned with votes and registrations accepted on the basis of vouching from other registered voters or residential facility employees, unquote. Now, vouching, as explained by the Minnesota Secretary of State's office, is when, quote, a registered voter from your precinct can go with you to the polling place to sign an oath confirming your address, unquote. The explanation goes on to read, quote, a registered voter can vouch for up to eight voters. You can't vouch for others if someone's vouched for you, though. Vouching also applies to eligible voters in residential facilities. Now, according to the state statutes, quote, an employee who provides proof that they are employed by and are working in residential facility in the precinct and vouching for a resident of the facility sign an oath in the presence of an election judge vouching that the voter or employee personally knows that individual is a resident of the precinct, unquote. In a sit-down interview leading to the 2025 general election, KTTC Capitol reporter Quinn Gorman asked Simon about the integrity of vouching. Quote, in the years I've done this job, I cannot recall a single instance of false vouching, unquote, Simon said, because people know they're making an oath under penalty of perjury, and they're going to get busted. They're going to get caught if they lie. And I haven't seen any evidence of that in any issue. We're talking about the state of Minnesota. Was it 9 billion, 18 billion in fraud? Unbelievable amount of fraud in this state. And I guess we're just scratching the surface. And they're saying, well, nobody has ever, ever vouched for someone that really wasn't in their precinct. Are you kidding me? Totally ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure we are going to see a whole bunch of these coming forward in that particular state of Minnesota. Now, there are other states that have the vouching practices in place. In Iowa, an eligible voter without an acceptable form of ID, like a driver's license or passport, can have their identity verified by another registered voter in their precinct, just like in Minnesota. Wonder if we should be looking at Iowa and anybody who did any vouching. In South Dakota, the vouching doesn't come from another registered voter. It comes in the form of an affidavit from the individual voting. The state allows a person to sign a voter registration form stating that they are who they say they are without confirmation from another registered voter. Gee, nobody's taken advantage of that before. And again, in Minnesota, just so you know, the vouching system has been in place for over 50 years, according to Simon's office. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Like I said, let's stay tuned to see how much fraud we'll find from that vouching process. Now we're going to go on to Nevada. Nevada, this is from KBTV 7, and it's also from the Associated Press, and this is from January 2nd, 2026. Nonpartisan voter numbers in Nevada. Every once in a while I have one of those words that I just cannot get out. Well, this was another one of them. Nevada. Nonpartisan voter numbers in Nevada are surging after DMV registration process change. Now, nonpartisans became the largest voting bloc in Nevada in 2023, and the gap has only widened since. And across the past year, a new factor appears to be accelerating the surge: changes in the party of the registration process. Now, under the automatic voter registration program that took effect in 2020, voters could select their party while registering to vote at the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, with the default option of being nonpartisan. However, starting in 2025, voters could no longer select their preferred party at the DMV. Instead, new voters' information is transmitted to their county election office, and when they confirm their eligibility is confirmed, they're mailed a form to select their political party. Eligible voters are also allowed to change their party registration online or at polling sites. If a voter doesn't use any of these methods, they will automatically be registered as nonpartisan, meaning they cannot vote in partisan primaries, hence Republican or Democratic primaries. The changes could inflate the number of Nevadians who identify as nonpartisan, potentially presenting a cloudier view of where potential voters see themselves on the political spectrum. However, the party strategists say this shouldn't cause significant issues for their operations. For instance, in Clark County, Nevada, of the more than 105,000 people who registered to vote this year, that's an astronomical number. 94% of them are designated as nonpartisan, according to county voter data. Now, Washoe County, 88% of the more than 21,000 new registrants are nonpartisan, a spokesperson confirmed. There are concerns that the change could further bog down the voter registration process. Nevada Secretary of State Cisco Aguilar A Democrat was not in office when the change was passed in the legislature, said in an interview that there should be discussions about, quote, if we really want voters to go through this extra step, unquote. And then, quote, the best thing we can do for voters is to streamline the process as much as possible, he said. But we always want to make sure the information is accurate. Yes, we do. We absolutely do. And I guess if this step is required to make sure that the information is accurate as possible, then I guess it has to be done, unquote. The Secretary of State's office is also sending postcards to all active registered voters ahead of the 2026 election with information on how to check their voter registration information online. Making it seem like it's a problem to make sure the voter rolls are accurate. Anyway, okay. Now we're going to go on to Ohio. 1, 2. We're going to need 2 boxes today for Ohio, just so you know ahead of time. This is from Circleville Herald Press. It is a press release from the ACLU on January 2nd, 2026. Again, get these ready. Get these ready. The ACLU of Ohio condemns signing of anti-democratic bill SB 293 by Governor DeWine. December 19th, Governor DeWine, signed into law Senate Bill 293, anti-democratic legislation that would close the post-election window for mailed ballots to be delivered to the Board of Elections. The bill also includes a litany of voting restrictions that place undue burdens on election officials and voters alike. Oh my goodness. SB 293 will be detrimental, that's a big word, to Ohio's democratic processes, requiring redundant documentation, the purging of eligible voters, and an increase in the number of provisional ballots. The ACLU of Ohio condemns the signing by Governor DeWine. Quote, Governor DeWine's decision to sign SB 293 did nothing to advance the integrity of the elections. To the contrary, it created unnecessary barriers for eligible voters to cast their ballots while trampling already overworked and undersupported boards of elections. Introduced just over 2 months ago, this legislation was rushed haphazardly through the committee process without adequate time for the public to comment or critical input from election officials. Hundreds of thousands of Ohio voters rely on vote by mail, especially elderly and rural voters, those with mobility issues or other disabilities. I'm sorry. And voters with limited transportation. Rather than increasing voter accessibility and ensuring every eligible Ohioan can cast their ballot, our lawmakers continue to manufacture solutions to non-existent problems, which only leads to further voter suppression. You think that we were talking about the League of Women Voters here, not the ACLU. Well, wait a minute, they're both one and the same. Anyway, I'm almost done. Bear with me. SB 293's grab of unfunded mandates, specifically its voter purge provisions, are bad policy, dangerous, and unlawful. I don't think the Democrats know what the word unlawful is. Okay, back to their press release. They will lead to wrongful removals of eligible voters, are in violation of federal law. Nah, I don't think so. The ACLU of Ohio again condemns SB 293 and the governor's decision to sign it. We will remain steadfast in our advocacy for all eligible Ohio voters, unquote. We need such a big wah for these people. They're basically putting into law to make sure that you're an eligible voter and that your ballots have to be in on election day. None of this extra stuff that's going on. Oh my God. How dare Ohio want to make sure that eligible voters are the only ones allowed to vote? And the normal rhetoric of, oh my God, they can't get to the polls. Oh, they don't have ID. Oh, you have all these problems. If you have mail in ballots, you put a stamp on it and you put it in the mail, preferably a couple of weeks ahead of time, because there is a story we're going to be reading a little later on in this program that you're definitely going to want to hear about. So before I go on to my next story, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Fight Voter Fraud, we work to ensure every legal vote is counted, and no unlawful vote ever diminishes the voice of we the people. We're fighting for you in courtrooms and communities nationwide to protect transparency, accountability, and fairness in every election. Our mission is simple: one vote for one legal voter. This is our country. This is our vote. Let's protect it together.
Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. I'm Linda Sinkowitz, the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. And again, I want to thank everyone who's watching us on OBBM Network TV, YouTube, or Rumble. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate all your support. The next state we're going to talk about is Oklahoma. I like saying Oklahoma. When I use examples of states, I usually like to use Oklahoma. All right, so Oklahoma. This is from News 6 on January 3rd. New Oklahoma election law hopes to increase turnout and reduce confusion. The new year brought a new law that changes Oklahoma's election calendar. Now, lawmakers hope this will improve voter turnout and bring more consistency and clarity. A new state law is changing when Oklahomans head to the polls, with lawmakers hoping a simpler election calendar will lead to higher voter turnout. There's fewer election days starting this year. Senate Bill 652 took effect on January 1st and consolidates Oklahoma's election dates into just 5 standard days each year. So you'll have, at certain times, you're going to have voting in February, in April, June, August, and of course, November. Supporters say the change will make it easier for voters to know when elections are happening and reduce the strain on county election boards and poll workers. Notice it'll make it easier for voters as opposed to Ohio with, oh my God, it's going to make it so much more difficult. We need 365 days of voting. So, quote, what we, through some research, figured out is that we just have too many election dates, said State Representative Mike Osborne. Now, he is from Edmond. Quote, and so it's hard for people to keep up with that. Yeah, I mean, when you have a whole bunch, where do you hear how many different times they have stuff? So Representative Osborne, who wrote the legislation, says Oklahoma has long struggled with low voter participation. Quote, Oklahoma is seriously, consistently the lowest voter turnout in the country, Osborne said. And we just have to do better than that. So the previous system caused a lot of confusion. Before the law, Oklahoma allowed up to 12 possible dates in odd numbered years and 8 in even numbered years. So note there, this new law just brought them down to 5, just 5. Many of those elections were low profile, often drawing smaller numbers of voters while still requiring full staffing and resources. Quote, even if I find myself driving by my polling places and sometimes thinking, what in the world are we voting on today? Osborne said. I think that's a funny statement. You probably should know if you're in the legislature. What's not changing in Oklahoma? The new law only affects when the elections are held, not how people vote. They're still going to have early voting, absentee ballots, and voter access options will remain the same. When the law applies, the streamlined calendar applies to elections scheduled after January 1st, 2026. So if there was any special elections already in the calendar, they won't be affected. Lawmakers hope that fewer, more predictable election days will encourage more Oklahomans to take part in the voting process. I think that's wonderful. They're looking to see how they can get more people to participate in our elections. I think that's fabulous. All right, so now our election term, our election vocab for the week. And this is actually from the Cambridge Dictionary, and it was checked on January 5th, 2026. The word of the week is barnstorm. To travel to a lot of small towns and make speeches to try to get people's votes and support. In the past, to barnstorm was to travel to a lot of small towns and perform flying tricks in aircraft. So they don't do that barnstorming anymore, but political people, candidates are doing barnstorm. Our trivia question of the week. Democratic candidates in the state of Minnesota, notice there's a theme there this week, compete in elections not on the quote Democratic Party ticket, but that of the DFL. The D in DFL stands for Democrat, and the F and L stand for what two professional words? We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
We need your help to ensure one vote for one legal voter. Join Fight Voter Fraud. Request training, get the potential double-registered, double voter data for your town, and donate to support the fight. Visit fightvoterfraud.org, because election integrity starts with you.
Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. Again, I'm Linda Sinkowitz. Thank you so much for watching our program. Our trivia question before we went to break was, Democratic candidates in the state of Minnesota compete in elections not on the Democratic Party ticket, but that of the DFL. Now, the DFL stands for Democrat, and the F and L stand for what two professional words? Farmer and labor. Probably going to end up changing that pretty soon. Okay, now we're going to go on to national news. This is from, oh my goodness, the Washington Post. You need at least one of these, maybe two. Like I said, we have some pretty wah stories this week, and how they're basically it's how they're written as well. So again, this is from the Washington Post on January 3rd, 2026. Now, the story itself, I got to tell you, was like this long. I mean, it was so ridiculous. I've condensed it down, but probably still not enough. Thousands of mail-in ballots could be discounted under new post office policy. The Postal Service is no longer guaranteeing when it will postmark the mail, which could jeopardize some ballots that arrive after Election Day. A recent change to how the U.S. Postal Service says it postmarks letters could discount the ballots of thousands of last-minute voters. Now, first of all, stop being a last-minute voter. Again, it's really important to vote. Vote ahead of time. Don't wait till the final day to send in your mail-in ballot. Postal Service announced on December 24th, its new guidelines say postmark might come days later when mail is actually processed at a regional facility, sometimes miles from a local mailbox. Most states require mail ballots to be in the hands of election officials by Election Day. I believe as all of them should. All of them should. But we have 14 states provide a grace period, allowing mail ballots to be counted if they arrive after Election Day and are postmarked by then, according to the National Conference of State Legislators. More than 24 others provide grace periods for military and overseas voters. Postal Service spokesperson Martha Johnson said, with the new guidance, it does not actually signal a change in the current practice. It merely puts that practice into the service's written protocols. Voters can still get a postmark on the day they mail the ballot if they request one at their local post office. So you go into the post office and hand it over the counter. You might have to wait in line, but if you want to ensure that your ballot is postmarked, that's what you're going to need to do. Postal Union leader says that this is a change from current practice, and previously mail would typically be postmarked on the day it came in, even if it was processed later. Quote, I think it's a huge deal, said Charles Charleston, president of the National Postal Mail Handlers Union, Local 311, which represents mail handlers in Texas. Now, there was a lot more to the story from there, and I skipped ahead to the Supreme Court announced in November it will decide whether laws that allow states to count mail ballots that arrive after Election Day are constitutional. I think not, but we are going to let the Supreme Court decide. And it was the Republican National Committee, the Mississippi Republican Party, the Libertarian Party of Mississippi, and a Mississippi voter challenged the state's mail ballot law in 2024 in lawsuits, arguing that federal election day statutes require ballots to be received by state officials on Election Day. The ruling is expected to drop by this summer and could influence the midterm elections in dozens of states. And I'll tell you, if you read that full article from the Washington Post, grab some Tylenol. It was just like, it just went on and on and on and on and on and on. You know, 1 or 2 boxes of tissues on that one. Now we're going on to our vote notes. Now, these vote notes are from Election Transparency Group, which we do get a lot of our information that we talk about from Election Transparency. Now, Cuccinelli's Election Transparency Group thanks Governor DeWine, Senators Brennan and Gavarone for boosting Ohio election integrity. I remember earlier we had the ACLU was complaining about this. Now, the Election Transparency Initiative, which is led by former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, publicly commended Governor Mike DeWine for signing into law a bill revising the deadline for returning absentee ballots. This again is Ohio Senate Bill 293. And he also thanked state senators Andrew Brennan, he's a Republican from Delaware, and Teresa Gavarone, she's a Republican from Bowling Green, They're primary sponsors of the election law measures. So, if you want to read more of that story, what we're going to need you to do is go to our vote notes, click on the link, and it is absolutely worth reading. Unlike the one earlier from the ACLU, unless you like 1 or 2 boxes of wah. I'm telling you, the stories are getting worse. Last year, we put up with a lot of them that were, way left leaning and wah. Now, they become bawling babies. They're just like crying all the time over everything. And if you haven't noticed, I've already gone into my final thoughts. I just kind of like lead right into it. But it's also with everything that we're seeing going on. Now, I know we talk about election stuff, and I brought up, Minnesota for a reason. And I'm hoping everybody is watching all the stories that are coming out of not only Minnesota, but Maine, Massachusetts, and a number of other states with all the fraud that has been happening across the country for a very long period of time. I am so happy that we have Doge. I am so happy that we have independent reporters like Nick Shirley. Unbelievable work that he's done. And also a number of the other independents that are out there. So a few things to keep in mind this year. Again, with election stuff, anytime someone says our elections are just, there's no flaws, everything is perfect, everything within our voter rolls, we have no issues, or maybe just a little bit, their pants are on fire. I'm telling you, their pants are on fire when they say that. And all the ones that go and complain about what is going on in our country. Now, we just saw the other day what our commander-in-chief did with Venezuela. What's the first thing we're hearing out there? When are you going to hold an election? When are you going to hold an election? I mean, they can't do it like that. It's not going to happen instantaneously. We just got him out, a few days ago. There will be elections, but it also needs to be secure elections. So we got to give it a little bit of time, just a little bit of time. I think it is phenomenal what President Trump has done for not only Venezuela, but for our country. We're sending a message that we're done. We're done with the cartels. We're done with the narco terrorists. We're done with all of this. Because I'm telling you, the cartels also are heavily involved in the voter fraud here in the United States. It's not just a little bit here, a little bit there. We need to go after the big picture. We need to clean our voter rolls. We don't want to listen to a Secretary of State in a blue state that says our voter rolls are fine. Again, let's get that fire extinguisher because they're going to need new pants with everything that we're seeing. Okay. So what we are doing is we are launching Operation Verify Voters 2026. We want to get people involved from every single state in the union. We did something a couple of years ago that we got every single state involved in. And if you remember, that had to do with writing a letter to your legislator and their Secretary of States on how to find the illegals on the voter rolls. It was a very easy process through the SAVE that was available and still is available to all Secretary of States to go and check and see if you have illegals on your voter rolls. So now what we want you to do, because you can make a difference. Every single one of you out there can make a difference from your own home. You know people who have sold the house on your street. You've seen the signs. You know people who have obviously moved, or even people in your neighborhood that may have passed away. What you need to do is check your voter rolls. We'll even help you. We'll give you, I don't know if we're doing it on WebEx. You can sign up for our classes. It's not going to take much time. It doesn't take much effort either. And we will be there to hold your hand. And you can make a difference. You can get your Republican groups in your state and even your Democrat groups in your state. You can get your senior centers. You can get any organization that you're working with to get some people involved. And we'll help you. It's not that difficult. You out there can make a difference. Every single person. And this way, when you are helping to clean the voter rolls, and some of you are going to be astonished as to what you're going to see, because we already know in Florida, people who've been dead for 30 years are still in the voter rolls. I know that's ones that I've been going through and verifying from my team when they put them together. It's unbelievable. First of all, if you come across anyone who has passed away and they are listed as inactive, well, technically, I guess they are. They're not moving anymore, but they should legally be off the voter rolls. They don't need to wait that period of time, the 4 years, to see if anything else happens, because if they are proven deceased, obituary, death certificate, there's all different ways you can verify this. They're not coming back. And the reason why this is so important is because you have those who like to do nefarious things. They see that someone is passed away, but they're still considered active on the voter rolls. You'd be surprised. They may end up voting for them. We've seen this multiple times. And I am so glad right now that our Department of Justice is actually looking into a number of things that happened in 2020. We spoke about Georgia. Was that 315,000 votes that were counted, that never should have been counted, that weren't verified? That Biden gave an award to the woman who was seen actually putting them in there. I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy what we have seen go on. So what we want to do, and we want to help you, is we are launching this week. You'll see Operation Verify Voters 2026. And if you personally don't want to be the one looking into it, you know what? Donate $10 for each person you want in your state to be looking at your voter rolls. And we'll make sure we have them looked into. Okay? So this is a whole new year. We're going to be hitting the ground running. This is 2026, and the midterms are so incredibly important. Do not think because you're in a blue state that there's no way you can win. If we have all of you out there as your own watchdogs within your own community, you would be surprised at the difference you can make. So again, I want to thank everyone for watching us on OBBM Network TV, Rumble, YouTube. If you have any questions or you have information you want to send to us, send it to info@fightvoterfraud.org. Again, all we want to do is educate people on elections and to clean the voter rolls. Please join us. Again, we'll see you next week. Thank you for watching.